Hey there, nerds. It's Jimmy Palmquist here, and I wanted to give you a little drive time by the numbers with Friday the 13th. Now, I have done a written article previously. If you'd like to see it, it is on Nerdlocker.com, so go check it out. Now, one of my favorite horror franchises is Friday the 13th. I am a huge fan of slasher films. Absolutely love them. I have no idea why, but Friday the 13th is one of my favorites. I think the evolution of the mythology of Jason Voorhees is phenomenal, especially considering the first movie really didn't have Jason Voorhees in it. So I think that's really cool how the mythology has gone along and the current incarnation that we have of Jason Voorhees. Now, that is not to say that I love every single Friday the 13th movie, which is why we are here today and I am doing a rundown. Coming in at number 12 on the Friday the 13th films, we have number 7, New Blood. God, I hate this film. It is so bad. Yes, I know that this is sort of a placeholder film where they were originally going to have Freddy versus Jason. I know that, I get that, whatever. It didn't happen. Instead, we get this awful, horrific, telekinetic story of this little girl who kills her dad and feels guilt and blah, blah, blah. It is bad. I hate this movie. Every once in a while, I'll get suckered into watching it again because the cover is so good. It's just this very awesome hunting knife. Looks like a Rambo knife with one side being, and then a face with one side of the face being the girl, the other side a hockey mask. I'm like, that's so cool. That looks awesome. And trust me, back in the mom and pop days of video store rental, I fell for that several times. Not again. I will, but not again. Next up, coming in at number 11, we have Jason, number 9, Jason Goes to Hell. This movie's awful. I really don't care what people say. I guess they're trying to take it in a new direction and have this little poop snake thing embody the evil that is Jason, and he's a Voorhees host to continue its life. Whatever. It's just awful, stupid. I absolutely hate this. Even the beginning where like the FBI, CIA, every agency is up to try and kill Jason, and then they blow him up and then his pieces come back together. This is the main reason why I hate Zombie Jason. It's just so stupid. I can't stand it. I hate it. We really lose the mythology of Jason Voorhees and who he is and who he was. I hate this movie. Don't watch it. I mean, you're gonna watch it, but don't think it's anything special. So coming in at number 10, we have the 8th installment of Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan. Now, as a kid, this was the first movie I remember seeing commercials for in the Friday the 13th franchise. I was so stoked. Oh my Lord, Jason's going to New York City. How cool is that? And remember, at this time, when this movie came out, slasher movies were still incredibly popular. And within the Jason franchise, you can count 5, but we really only had one awful bomb, and that was part 7. So things were still going really well for Jason Voorhees. Now, unfortunately, this movie came out, and it sort of proved to us that they don't have much left to do with Jason. Jason sort of run his course, and we don't know what to do other than change the location of his killing spree. Add to that the fact that he's not really in Manhattan all that long. He's mainly on a boat. So, hugely disappointing. This film had promise, but they wanted to skimp on the budget, so they couldn't film in New York City, or chose not to film in New York City, which I get. It's expensive. But on the flip side, it's just an awful story. I have no clue what is going on in the end there. Why does New York City flush raw sewage, toxic waste down through its sewer system? I don't understand that. And then when Jason gets hit with this toxic waste, why does he all of a sudden turn back into a baby, like a child? I don't know. Just dumb. I don't know who came up with this idea, but it was just dumb. So coming in at number 9, we have Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. Now let me say that the 3 films I mentioned as the worst are clearly that. After those 3, I think we do have a demarcation line where the movies get better and they're entertaining. Now I might not have them ranked as high as other people would, but I think these films are at least good and entertaining. And with A New Beginning, I really truly believe that the producers wanted to try something new. I know people probably don't like it because it doesn't have Jason in it, but for flashbacks, it is the middle of the Tommy Jarvis trilogy, which I really enjoy. I think that's just a good story. I would be curious to see where the franchise would have gone if they had picked up on this idea that Tommy Jarvis was going to become the killer, which is what this film is. It's the setup to try and get him to be the killer. It bombed. It was awful. People hated it. It didn't make the money, so they went back to sort of the old conventions. But this one, I think, is kind of original. I like what they tried. You can tell that they were saving money on the production values. But all in all, I still find it entertaining, and I enjoy them. So coming in at number 8, probably a surprise to many people, is Jason X. Yes, I know, I said the franchise is running its course, so they just put Jason in ridiculous places. You would think that would mean I'd have this ranked not as well. No, Jason X is such a tongue-in-cheek, we know the franchise is dead, we just want to make a movie. And in real time, they were trying to make Freddy vs. Jason once again. Wasn't happening, so Sean Cunningham, I believe, allowed his son to make this film. Just a goofy Jason movie, which is perfect because that's what Jason became. He was just a big joke. Put him in space. It was funny. I liked it. And the fact that they sort of, as they were making it, they seemed to have known that that was a joke. I love it. I think it's a fun watch. No, it's not my favorite, but it's up there. As a side note, this is the last time Kane Hodder would wear the mask and be Jason Voorhees. As a second side note, his first turn as Jason was in the aforementioned A New Blood, which is awful. So really, I'm not sure why people associate Jason with Kane Hodder when... And it's not his fault, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Kane Hodder's a bad guy. But really, the movies that he portrayed Jason in were the worst ones in the franchise. So, shout out to Kane Hodder for being Jason. I'm not a big fan of the movies you were in as Jason. Yeah, I'm gonna get hate mail on that one. So coming in at number 7, and this may sound weird, but there's so many movies to choose from. Number 7 is going to be the original Friday the 13th. Upon first viewing, I can only imagine what people thought of this film. Obviously, it did well enough to get a bunch of sequels, but it really wasn't, I mean, at the time, it was pretty original, but still, it didn't really set itself apart from other slasher films, such as Halloween. I'm not exactly sure when The Burning came out, but it was probably around that time. It was okay. But now that we have all the other movies that have Jason Voorhees as the killer, this movie got that much better because now it has an ultimate twist. If you haven't ever seen it, and then you go back and watch it and you don't know the twist, spoiler alert after 30 plus years, it's Mrs. Voorhees, a female, a woman. Jason's mom is the killer. Jason really isn't in this movie. Yes, he is in it briefly, but not really. He's not the essential killer. So it's very interesting to watch this movie nowadays versus, I'm sure, when it first came out. Now, I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this. Coming in at number 6, I just gave number 7 to the original. I'm going to give number 6 the remake. I really enjoyed this remake. I really liked what they did with it. They essentially took the first 3 movies, condensed it down into one, and you made a fantastic Friday the 13th movie. A great update to the horror franchise. I really like the additions of like the tunnel system under the campground so Jason could do as he pleases. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The only thing I really didn't like is the ending to the film where Jason dies, and I know they have this set up to be a sequel, which hasn't come to fruition yet, but I don't like how Jason dies and then he comes back because that just sets us up for Jason, for zombie Jason. And if you've noticed, everything I've said so far, I hate Zombie Jason. Zombie Jason is the worst. I can't stand the fact that everybody relates to Zombie Jason. I hate Zombie Jason. So now we're in the top 5, and coming in at number 5 is Friday the 13th Part 3. Now this movie is the whole reason we know Jason Voorhees. He gets his hockey mask. It might surprise some people that before number 3, he didn't wear a hockey mask, and in fact in 1 he wasn't even the essential killer. So Part 3, in a weird, quirky coinkydink, I have no idea how they wrote this, because you really don't imagine a hockey mask existing in this movie, yet Jason finds a hockey mask off of one of the other characters that he kills. He dons the hockey mask, and voila, we have Jason in a hockey mask, which is iconic, amazing. I can't fathom it working any other way. In fact, I don't think Jason would have made as many movies if he didn't have the hockey mask. So I'm a big fan of 3. My only regret is I really, really wish someday, I hope, I will be able to see this in 3D as it was intended to be. You know, there was a big trend in the early 80s with this. I've never seen it in 3D. I love the really awful gimmicks they use in the movie as I watch it in 2D to express 3D, like a little mouse climbing out there and Jason shooting a spear gun, and it comes directly at the audience. I really want to see this in 3D someday. So folks, work with me here. Let's make that happen. So coming in at number 4, we have probably, well, the second modern Jason movie that I would say, and that's Freddy vs. Jason. And even to Freddy's credit, this is really Freddy's first time to use CG effectively for the first time. Yes, I know it had been used in prior films, but this one really used it and used it well. I'm sure there are people that don't like this film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I still enjoy it. It's, I believe it's the first time that Kane Hodder is not Jason. I remember the sort of scandal that was going on at the time where he didn't get cast as Jason. But it is the last time that Robert Englund donned the costume, the sweater, I guess, the hat and sweater, as Freddy Krueger, which is a very cool, very nice nod. I think the storytelling is great. I love how they get both characters involved. And in fact, at the end, when they're like, nope, well, we don't know who won, we'll leave it up to you who you guys think won. I thoroughly enjoy this movie. It's a fun monster fest. Definitely check it out, but it's in my top 5. It comes in at number 4. Coming in at number 3. Now, I know what I said before about Zombie Jason, and I hate Zombie Jason. But if you're doing your math at home, you'll realize there is one Zombie Jason flick that I have not mentioned yet, and that is Part 6, Jason Lives. This movie is genius. Absolutely genius. The way that they bring Jason back, a la Frankenstein, the myth of Jason having to be returned to Camp Crystal Lake, the way they do it, I love this flick. It is a fun adventure. I am not sure who came up with this idea to create Zombie Jason in this way, but it's just genius the way they did it. The jokes that they did, again, tongue-in-cheek, they knew what they were doing, they knew what they were creating, and they ran with it. I'm very sad that they couldn't replicate this again, and Zombie Jason just became this awful killer that kept coming back, and the jokes became more and more hokey. But for this one, Part 6, they nailed it. I love Jason Lives despite the zombie factor. So we only have 2 films left. What could possibly be my second favorite Friday the 13th movie? Well, it's of course Friday the 13th Part 2. Huge fan of this film. It sets the tone. It establishes Jason as the killer, and it's the first one to do so. I love how the producers decided we need to keep this franchise going, because Sean Cunningham, the original producer, did not think that this was going to be a franchise. He just had a one-and-done idea. So the fact that they took the boy who drowned in the first one, somehow created the idea that he survived, and now he's going to take vengeance on all these people, let alone take vengeance on the people that killed his mom. Genius. I love this idea. I love the film. I love the ode to the old horror film, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, with the sack that Jason wears instead of the mask, because he doesn't have the hockey mask yet. I would have been honestly fine if he kept that little hood the rest of the series. But I just love the film. I love how they then reveal the ugliness that is Jason. When he comes through those glass windows there at the end, it's scary as all hell. When we see the resolution on how they need to kill Jason, and the main character puts on Mrs. Voorhees' sweater, it's like, oh damn, that's creepy as all get out. Man, yeah. Number 2 is my second favorite great flick. So if you are doing your math at home, you realize there's only one Friday the 13th film left, and that could only be the final chapter. It wasn't until this film that they actually started giving each chapter a name. Before that, it was obviously just Friday the 13th, and then it was part 2, and then part 3. But part 4 is where they decided, hey, you know what? Let's go with this gimmick, and we'll do the final chapter. And the funny part is, at that time, they really did think this was going to be the last Friday the 13th. So much so that they brought Tom Savini back so that he would be the one to kill off his creation, because he's the one that came up with the special effects and all that, for the original Jason Voorhees, the child in the first movie. So, very cool how that happens. It's also the beginning of the Tommy Jarvis trilogy, which I'm a big fan of. Tommy Jarvis being played by Corey Feldman in this movie. Corey Feldman does a fantastic job as a child actor, very much conveys the horror and fear, and at the end, the resolution of how they kill Jason. Very, very cool. I like that a lot. I don't know if you know, but Crispin Glover is also in this movie, which I find hilarious. I really enjoy this film. I'm bummed that at some point, some level, that this isn't the final film, because really, there's a part of me that is able to rationalize that every single death he went through, he could have survived. Up until 4. In 4, you got him in the head with the machete, he's donezo. Then 5 actually makes sense because there is no more Jason Voorhees. Tommy Jarvis would become Jason Voorhees. And then we would totally not have to deal with zombie Jason, which I've already stated is not my favorite. So I really believe that the serial killer of Jason Voorhees truly died in this film, making my favorite of the whole series of the first 6. Really enjoy this flick. I think it's fantastic. I love the way they tell it, and I think they have all the great slasher film moments in this film, height of the Friday the 13th franchise. So number 1 is part 4, the final chapter. Again, this was my list, my top 12. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As a side note, recently they have announced that a 13th Friday the 13th film will be coming out soon. There was speculation that this was going to be a found footage film. Luckily for us, the fans, they have come out recently and said, no, we've changed our minds. From what I've been hearing, it was a lot of fan pressure that was the reason why they changed their minds. I know growing up, they had always said that the 13th movie will be the final movie of the Friday the 13th chapter. And it's going to be huge and big, and that was the whole purpose of it. So I hope it is huge and big. I doubt it's going to be the last one anymore, the way they do films nowadays. But let us know what you think in the comments below.